Welcome back to another episode of ROC Boys Football, continuing with our 2022 season preview as we take a look at the Boise State Broncos. Before we get into it, I just wanted to say thank you guys for all the support, 1,000 subscribers on the YouTube channel. That just means so much to my brother and I. We love talking college football with all you guys in the comment section. If you guys do like the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Join the community. We're talking college football. We're talking the NFL draft. It's been an absolute blast. Now let's start talking some Boise State football. Taking a look at their last couple games, looking over the stats, this team was a lot better than their 7-5 record. It was a kind of rocky year for Coach Alvos in his first year. But looking back at the schedule in 2021 and how they played, you got to think they were a better team than what they showed in the 7-5 record. I mean, looking at a really, really tough loss to what I think was a top 25 team with a healthy Dillon Gabriel on the road at UCF, and then losing by 1 point and kind of dominating that game against Oklahoma State, a team that at the end of the season was a top 10 team, beat Notre Dame in a bowl game. There were some really, really good teams that were tough losses, and it's exciting to think about if those two games changed and they were able to pull out even one of those two games. What's their confidence looking like going into the Mountain West? I mean, they might be a different team after those two losses. Without further ado, though, we're going to get into the offense. Hank Bachmeier returning. He is one of the tougher quarterbacks in the country. When I'm watching back their games, I mean, he is taking so many hits, which is kind of weird. We'll talk about the offensive line in a little bit. But Hank Bachmeier, he clearly took some steps from his first 2 years. Obviously, 2019, the true freshman year, was just choppy. COVID year, obviously choppy. And then he really took that step, completed over 63% of his balls, 3,000 yards, 20 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. His efficiency got better. His accuracy got better. And he overall looked like a more progressed quarterback, which is very common to see as quarterbacks need some time to adjust to that college football level of play. It's exciting to think if he can take that fourth step into his fourth year. We saw a quarterback like Kenny Pickett, his third, fourth year, fifth year. He just got better and better and better. And obviously his fifth year, he's a Heisman finalist, one of the best, if not the best quarterbacks in the country. Hank Bachmeier could certainly take that trend because this dude is just seeming like he's getting more comfortable in the offensive scheme. He's returning as offensive coordinator for the first time since he's been at Boise State. And he just seems to be adapting to college football more and more as the season went on. Really optimistic about his play and his ability to be a first-team All-Mountain West kind of guy. Now, you look at the wide receiver core, this is the biggest question mark you have with this offense. Losing a guy like Khalil Shakir, who is just so special. When he had the ball in his hands, he was really hard to tackle. He created separation like the best of them. Kind of an underrated 2022 NFL draft guy. He was high on our boards. He goes to my Buffalo Bills. Very excited what he can do. But Boise State's got to figure out how they're going to replace a productive receiver like Shakir. A lot of the guys who are going to have to step up haven't played a ton of football. Stephon Cobbs is the guy that I think has the juice to kind of replace a Khalil Shakir. He's obviously a very good punt returner. He's very good with the ball in his hands. And he was the most productive wide receiver. In 8 games, he caught for 34 catches, 420 yards, and 5 touchdowns. So he kind of seems to be the wide receiver one coming in. I thought they would maybe go to the portal, seeming like they haven't had too many guys step up. But Davis Creditor, Billy Bowen, hopefully can step up a little bit for Hank. I think this offense will try to lean back on this run game. Now, it's interesting. I'm looking at the pace of play. They were 28th in pace of play last year and compared to 106 pace of play in 2020. So they're running a lot faster. And I'm wondering if this offense, under the second year of the scheme, can get a little bit more adept at running with that pace. I also think that run game will be leaned on. A quarterback's best friend, a passing game's best friend is a strong run game. When teams have to commit more bodies to the box, that will open up and make it easier for Hank Bachmeier to get it to his new receivers. And I look to a guy like George Holani, who, as a true freshman in the Mountain West, looked like he was going to be one of the best running backs in Boise State history. He looked absolutely awesome the last couple of years, obviously COVID, and then just struggled to stay on the field. He averaged 5 yards a carry. He didn't look bad, but you want to see him get back to that true freshman form because this dude has all the tools to be an 1,000-yard rusher. He's a very complete back. He has some good breakaway speed. He's got good contact balance. He makes people miss at the second level. He kind of checks all those boxes. You just want to see that be translating to production on the field. And then the X factor, I would say, for this offense is the offensive line. It was leaky at times. Hank Bachmeier was taking a lot of sacks. He was taking a lot of hits. But when you look at the offensive line individually, you're excited about a lot of these guys. I mean, John Njoku is one of the better tackles in the Mountain West. Ben Dooley is also very good. Number 71, Beresford, I believe that's how you say his name. He was also impressing me when I was watching back a couple of their games. It's a good group individually. Now, we talked about the pace of play coming into the year. They're running a lot faster, and I wonder if that had something to do with the communication on the offensive line and picking up blitzes, because that's where I saw Boise State struggle the most, was picking up those stunts, picking up those extra guys blitzing. That's where the pressures, that's where the sacks, that's where the hits that Hank Bachmeier was taking came in. And so if they're coming into their second year under this scheme, getting better at communicating, picking up blitz packages, I think that offensive line will take a step, because, again, it's not an individual player that was getting exposed. In my opinion, it was just more they were struggling to pick up stunts. They were struggling to pick up extra guys blitzing. And if they can get better at that, the talent is there. They're a talented offensive line. They just got to get better in that department. Now, on the defensive side of the ball, they return a lot of guys that I'm really excited about. Obviously, a guy like J.L. Skinner we'll talk about a little later. We're going to start with the defensive line. This is a group that, I mean, whenever I'm evaluating college football defensive line, I always look to the defensive line. Whenever I'm evaluating college football defense, I always look to the defensive line. You see that's kind of the formula of having a good defense. Having a front four that can be disruptive is massive. You look at a Georgia team last year. Kirby Smart was on record saying they were concerned about their secondary last year. Well, guess what? It didn't matter, because that defensive line, quarterbacks couldn't step up in the pocket and throw. And so you can mask a lot of problems with a strong pass rush and with a strong group up front that can give you those negative plays, those sacks, those TFLs. Those are the plays that help you get off the field. Now, all four Broncos who had 3 sacks last year are returning. I'm going to start with Scott Malek, 6'4", 300-pound-ish interior defensive lineman. He plays the game really hard. He's going to be a redshirt senior. I think this is going to be his 6th year of college football. He's just really solid. I mean, the production he puts up from the interior is really impressive. 8.5 TFL, 7 sacks. You notice him on the film. And he doesn't flash with like the Jordan Davis size, but he plays hard. He's always around the football. He's a very active interior defensive lineman that will just kind of be a centerpiece in that defense. You get a guy like George Tarlets, who I want to mention. He's a transfer from Weber State, so FCS ball, but he had 17 sacks in 45 games with Weber State. Look for him to make somewhat of an impact. I don't necessarily know if he'll be a starter, but on those pass rushing downs, he's long. He's 6'4.5". I think he can provide a little bit of juice from that pass rush. And then a guy like Isaiah Bagna, 7 TFL, 6 sacks. They have some guys who are returning, who are veterans, and you just want to see them take that next step. Like, who can be a 10-plus sack guy? Who can be a 10-plus TFL guy? Create those negative plays for the defense. At the linebacker spot, Ezekiel Noah returns, 66 tackles, 6.5 tackles for loss. He'll be a centerpiece. What I want to mention, though, is Deshawn Moosa. He's going to be a true freshman this year. He looks the part. I mean, 220-pound, 18-year-old kid coming in. And you want to see a little bit more athleticism from the linebackers. This guy will provide that. Now, will he be ready to be a full-time starter as a true freshman? We'll see. He's got the athletic build, but again, as a linebacker, a lot of it is instincts, developing that conception and that grasp on the playbook and the scheme. And so if they can get him in and be a productive true freshman, he's a very good athlete, and I'd expect him to make some plays for that Boise State defense. And then the back end, this is just the strength of the defense. Again, they were 12th in scoring defense, and a large part was just an absolute lockdown secondary. You can see Coach Alvos's hands all over this defensive backfield. And we're going to start with, obviously, J.L. Skinner. He is one of the best safeties in the country. I'm not going to compare him to the likes of a guy like Kyle Hamilton, because I don't know if he's quite the athlete, but they do a lot of the same things. They line him up all over the field. He can play kind of in the back end, in the center field, cover one guy. He's also great in the box. He had, 6.5 tackles for a loss. He is the X factor, kind of the X-Man for that defense. They do a lot of things with him, and he has his fingerprints all over that defense. and he was really, really impressive. I put him right on my 2023 NFL draft board immediately after doing this Boise State preview because he was really, really impressive. Now, the secondary in general was absolutely awesome. It only allowed 58 completion percentage. It had more interceptions, 13 interceptions, than it gave up passing touchdowns, 12. If that secondary can stay the same, which I expect it to, this defense is going to be good. And now looking at the schedule, this is kind of how we end every spring preview or summer preview, I should say. We're getting into the summer. Is what's their schedule looking like? They had a tough schedule last year. I mean, going on the road to UCF is one of the harder places to play. And then they obviously played Oklahoma State, who is the runner-up in the Big 12 title game. This year, it seems to be a little bit easier out of conference. Your big out-of-conference game is going to be on the road at Oregon State, which is not an easy place to play. And we just previewed Oregon State. They will be a solid team, but they are a gettable team. Oregon State is a good team, but there's nothing that's really, really jumping out at you. They're going to run the ball and they're going to work the play action. Boise State can certainly win this game, and this will be kind of a good tone setter for the season to see where this Boise State is at. Obviously, a disappointing 7-5 season last year. They can pick up a win on the road. It's going to be on ESPN against Oregon State. That's going to bode really, really well for the confidence of the Broncos going through the rest of the schedule. On the road at New Mexico should take care of UT Martin, UTEP. They should take care of those guys. And then they play San Diego State, who I do not think will be as good. And this is as weird as this sounds. Losing their punter, Matt Ariza, will be a massive factor in San Diego State's success. You look at what San Diego State wanted to. I've been watching a couple of the games. They run the ball, and then they'll punt and pin you in the top inside the 10 and pretty much play field position. They had a good defense, but they're losing some guys up front. Like Cameron Thomas. But really, I don't know if they'll be able to win the formula they won last year without a very good punter because it was so important to field position. They would try to dominate the clock and just play field position battle. And with the best punter, that lets you do it. But it starts the gauntlet. San Diego State, then you go to Fresno State. You have them at home. Then you go on the road at Air Force. Those are probably the three best teams in the Mountain West for my money. And they're all three back to back. Well, you get a bye week in between Fresno State and Air Force. But again, that's kind of the gauntlet. If they can get there with 2 wins and then take care of Colorado State, you got BYU out of conference. That'll be at home. That'll be a very exciting game. BYU is one of my higher ranked teams coming in the top 25. But if Boise State is only 1 loss going into that BYU game, they'll probably be in the top 25. That will be a very, very exciting home game against a very, very good out-of-conference team like BYU. And then you finish with Nevada, Wyoming, and Utah State, who all have some massive question marks. Specifically, Utah State, they're losing their best wide receiver. And so looking at this schedule, I think Boise State kind of gets back to dominating the Mountain West. But we've seen Boise State's been one of the most consistent teams in the country the last, 2 decades. It seems like since Patterson was there, they've just been always relevant. You're always watching ESPN. You always see the blue turf. They are one of the more consistent. It's like a blue blood, if you will, for the group of 5 teams. Like they are always one of the best group of 5 teams. They're always exciting to watch play. And I think Boise State kind of gets back to that national relevance where they're in the top 25. They're fighting for a really, really good bowl game and Mountain West champs. I think that's the ceiling for this team. It's really good. They're returning a lot of guys. So thank you guys for checking out the video. Again, if you guys like the content, you like talking college football, consider subscribing. And then let me know in the comment section what you guys think. This Boise State team I'm a little less familiar with. I don't watch as much Boise State football. So if you guys want to let me know in the comments which guys I should put on my board, should take a look at, that would be appreciated. As usual, appreciate you guys watching. We'll talk to y'all later.